Come on in, you guys. We're about ready to start a brand new episode of Jimmy Rants. JimmyRants.com is the website. In case you don't know, that is how you can access all the past episodes of this here show. My web guy, Hank, told me that they're working on it. So if you go there and you don't see the latest episodes, just know that he's working on it to try to get the latest episodes towards the top. You can see all the latest episodes of Jimmy Rants over at YouTube. Just type in a keyword, Jimmy Rants, you'll find the show, and then go look for my page. And we do have them categorized, by the way, by seasons. And so all the ones I did in 2019 are under one page, and then all the brand new ones under 2020, we have there assimilated all together on YouTube. And of course, we do start the show here on Instagram Live, also simulcast on two different Facebook pages, but the main show is here on Instagram. So go follow me there at Livin' Low Carb Man, LIVINLOWCARBMAN. And once you're there, we do provide content on my regular page as well as in my stories. Try to keep it entertaining, yet educational about all kinds of topics, keto, fasting, cholesterol. Lately, I've been talking about the COVID-19 thing, and then what we're going to talk about in today's show, childhood trauma. So lots and lots of stuff to consume. But before I get into my topic, a lot of you guys have been worried about me. Thank you for that. I posted this morning on social media about 3 days ago. I felt really tired around 4:30 in the afternoon and had to go lie down. Then 2 days ago, I felt that at 4 o'clock and had to go lie down. Yesterday was the worst day. I got up and had to go lay down around 9 o'clock. And then it was right before I did Jimmy Rants. I woke up and did the show. When that was over, like almost immediately after it was over, I was talking to a friend on the phone and I felt it again. I went and laid down for 2.5 hours. I got up, I ate some eggs, and shortly after eating the eggs, I got tired again, and then I went to sleep and slept for 9.5 hours. So yesterday was really bad. So I thought I would let people know what was going on. So today I've been playing a lay low kind of feel. I haven't really done a whole lot of work. I did one podcast at 1:30, and I've been trying to chill out just to feel out how I am. And I feel great. Like this morning I kind of just had that little, I could tell something, I wasn't all the way back, but right now I feel really, really good. I had my ribeye steaks this morning to eat and pretty much have been fasting all day since then, and I feel good. So thank you for all the concerns that people had for me. I don't know what that was. Some people surmised it could have been just stress-induced, which I can't imagine. Do we have any stress in our lives right now? There's no stress. It's just a reminder that even the people who seemingly are taking this all in stride, we still have our moments. So, by the way, there's my cat Peaches for those of you watching on Instagram, and here on there. Can you guys? No, you guys can't see her. I'll see. There's my cat Peaches. Can you see her? All right. Now that we got the Jimmy Moore health update out of the way, let's talk about childhood trauma, because I got some news today from my mom that was quite disturbing. And it kind of solidified some thinking I had already in my head about events that happened and how I've been assimilating and processing things. So let me back up a little bit. Those of you that don't know, I've been talking about this since I returned from my sabbatical. I was gone on a 6-month sabbatical from September 1st until March the 1st. So I came back March the 1st. During the sabbatical, very quickly after I left, some information came out that changed my narrative of how my childhood went. And in the process of that came back some abuse that came into my life when I was from 14 until about 17 and a half. So a 3.5 year period there where I was shipped away to live with my dad, and he was highly emotionally abusive, physically abusive, and one time he was sexually abusive to me, which I'll talk about here in a minute. So I get in this process of trying to figure out what all of that meant. It probably took me 3 months after all of this stuff came out, about mid-September. So around mid-December is when I finally was kind of coming out of this comatose state of like trying to process all this. So March 1st came around. I came back to work, started talking about some of this childhood trauma stuff. Interestingly, my relationship with my mom has grown very deeply. Like, I'm having conversations with my mom now that I've literally never had this depth of conversation before, because she now has a newfound compassion for her son, because she did not know about the abuse that happened at the hands of my dad when I was a teenager. And she was the one, she's feeling a lot of guilt, you guys. And I've tried to release her of that guilt, that she feels so guilty because she was the one that had me sent away to live with him for a lot of reasons, which I've talked about on previous episodes. But our conversations have been wonderful. So Mom and I talk a lot. We go really deep. We had a very deep one for about an hour today before my podcast. My dad, on the other hand, is a whole nother question. And people have asked me, what's your relationship like with your dad now in light of what he did? And I've always kind of held this position of, it's not great, but I'm more empathetic towards him than anything. Like, he had really bad abuse in his life, and so I'm understanding of why he thought he might have needed to abuse me. So about a week and a half ago, I get a call from my dad, and he left me a voicemail on my phone and said, "Hey, I'd love to talk to you. It's been a while since we talked, blah, blah, blah." And I remember getting the phone call. I remember calling my mom and saying, I don't really want to talk to him right now. I'm not in a good headspace to be able to have those conversations, because when you've been traumatized by someone, it's really hard to get that image out of your head. Like, he did some really ugly, ugly things to me that are still replaying in my mind. And so I've got this replay in my mind over and over and over again of throwing my head into walls, punching me in my head out in public, and of course hitting me on the behind and other parts of my body. I was telling my mom about this earlier, that when he would spank me, it wasn't just this like spanking. I mean, he was rearing back and pow, a very muscular guy. And so I would go in the bathroom and you could see literally the hand print on my behind. And it left welts that would last there for a week and a half, 2 weeks. So there was a lot of anger behind the hitting me. Of course, my theory behind that has been that he was upset with my mom, and I looked a whole lot like my mom when I was a kid. I look a lot more like my dad now, but when I was a kid, I looked a lot like my mom. So I think every time he hit me, I was a proxy for my mom. And so anyway, I'm rambling a little bit. Let me get to what happened today. So my mom calls me and she says, "I heard from your dad." Now, keep in mind, those two don't get along. Those two, they don't talk. So when my mom gets a call from my dad, that's literally the first time they have talked since my brother Kevin died. That was 2008. So here we are 12 years later, and she gets a call out of the blue from my dad. He said, "Hey, I'm worried about our son because he's not returning my calls." And then mom knows the whole story about why I'm not. Yeah, he's working through some stuff right now, and I think he just needs to have that space, and let him have that space, is what my mom told my dad. So then he's like, "Well, my other son from another woman says that he's talking bad about me online." And now keep in mind, my dad, he owns a flip phone. He's never been on the internet. He doesn't know what I do for a living. He would have no idea what Jimmy Rants is. But he's like, "I heard from my other son that he's saying that I was abusive towards him. And I'm just here to tell you that never happened." Right. So my mom tells me this. And of course, my first instinct is, "Mom, do you believe him?" She's like, "Not a chance in hell do I believe him." She said that he told her that he disciplined me and he might have yelled a little bit at me. And that was it. And so I start recounting all of these incidents that I have vivid in my memory that happened. And he really got upset at the sexual abuse one. because I have been telling you guys that I came out of the shower as 15 years old. I was taking a shower on the way to school, and I took a shower. It was about 8 to 10 minutes I was in the shower. And I come out of the shower, and he's like, "Why are you out of the shower?" And I said, "Well, I'm done bathing." "What do you mean, why am I out of the shower?" He said, "Well, that's not near long enough, and when you get home from school today, I will show you how to properly bathe." Now, I'm 15 years old. I didn't know what that meant. So I get home, and as soon as I get home, he says, "Go into the bathroom and strip naked." And so I take off all my clothes. He walks in. If that's not traumatizing enough to have your father look at you, 15 years old is already awkward as it is. And now your father's looking at everything. And he takes a washcloth and he starts rubbing every part of my body, including all the obvious parts that would be inappropriate. And so he's now denying that that happened. And I'm going, "Mom, that definitely happened." So how do you move on when you're not getting closure from someone that basically was the perpetrator in the childhood trauma? And that's where I'm at now, you guys, because here we are all these years later. He's 71 and frail, and he's denying what he did to me. And maybe those of you that have gone through some kind of trauma in your life, didn't have to just be childhood. Maybe you had an abusive husband, or something happened where you have trauma in your life and it's unresolved. The worst part of those people who deal with like an abuser or something, and then that abuser dies or something happens where you can't fully resolve that trauma. And that's where I am. And I had already, my instinct told me I don't want to engage him. My instinct had said, I feel like he doesn't deserve that. Now, I've always had empathy for him because I realize his own dad traumatized him by beating him and emotionally berating him. And so he brought that into his adulthood and then lavished that onto me. And so I have always had empathy for him. But my problem is this, like if I engage him on the phone, it's very surface value conversation. And you guys know me well enough. I don't talk surface value. I go really deep when I'm talking. And so if I'm going to be in a conversation with someone, it's going to have to be where we go really, really, really deep. And quite frankly, I can't do that with him. I'll get on the phone and he'll say, well, let's see who died. I'll go on the phone and, he shows no interest in my life and in how I've turned out. He's not yet ever told me he's proud of me. All of these things we have expectations of that are never going to be fulfilled. So what do you do with that? I'll tell you what I've done with it. I've come to the conclusion that I never actually had someone in my life that I could look up to. And there's a lot of you guys that have dealt with that yourself. You've had somebody in your life that has let you down. And when people let you down, that you look up to, you have to deal with that. Otherwise, you're going to drive yourself nuts. Like I've been talking to a personal friend whose mother just totally berates her. And there's nothing she can do that is good enough. No matter what she does to try to deal with that properly, no matter what she does to try to earn the affection of her own mother, she's turned down at every point. Is this resonating, you guys? Are you kind of seeing yourself in this? Do you know people in this situation? Because I feel like there's a whole lot of people that they're never going to get that full closure from things that happened to them. And the fact that my dad just said all that to my mom today, saying that, oh my gosh, I can't believe he would say those things that I did to him. I didn't do anything. Denial is not just a river in Egypt. It's big. And we have to come to terms with, you're going to have moments in your life when you want to close the door on things and you're not going to be able to. So that's where you reach deep inside yourself and you say, look, what happened to me happened. Can't change what happened. I wish I could. I wish I could go back in time and not be beaten. But I was beaten. I wish I could go back time and not be told I'm not going to amount to anything and I was a worthless piece of crap and that no girl would ever want to be with me. I wish I didn't have to hear all of those things, but I did. I wish I could go back time and not want to comfort eat for a decade and a half because I was so hurt by those events from 3.5 years of my life that I would eat myself to 410 pounds. I would love to go back and change all that, but I can't. I would love to say that all those events didn't have a negative impact on my life, but they did. Now, I will be the first to tell you I am the man I am today because of those events. And I think we have to always remind ourselves that there's beauty in ashes. That's a very biblical phrase there, but there is always beauty in ashes. When you have been torn down and burnt to a crisp, you can rise above that. And I hope that my sharing this is a shining example that you can have lots of good come out of lots of bad. My mom asked me that question today. Oh, I wish I could go back and take away all that pain that you went through. I wish you didn't have to go through that. I said, Mama, don't do that. The reason I went through that is for right now. And right now I'm able to help a lot of people because I'm sharing quite openly about something you're not supposed to talk about. And you guys know me well enough. There is no subject that's taboo to me. To me, when you talk about things that hurt, you connect with people in a special way that but for you sharing that hurt, you would just look like everybody else. And if sharing about childhood trauma hurts people's feelings, okay, fine. But at the end of the day, it happened. It happened to me. It happened to you. And if you don't talk about it, what happens to it? It just festers. And I feel bad for my dad. He had major childhood trauma from his dad. His dad beat the crap out of him and was an alcoholic and was berating him and all these things. So why would my dad act any different towards me? Now, Mom did tell me he was never abusive towards her. He did emotionally berate her, but he never touched her. But then he started beating me and my brother Kevin. And especially when I went to live with him at 14, that's when it really got bad. Ironically, he never touched my younger brother. Never once touched him. So he had a selectiveness in the abuse, which means I think he had a consciousness about it, which makes this all the harder to find closure about what happened. So where am I at now? So this just obviously just happened where I heard that he's denying that he did anything to me other than discipline and maybe a little bit of yelling. I don't think I want to have a relationship with him. He doesn't deserve that in my mind. And I'm becoming more okay with that by the moment. Like the more I've thought about it, and I didn't just start thinking about it today, I've been thinking about it a while. I feel like if you can't show at least contrition that you played a role in someone's life negatively, you know, here's the best case scenario. Here's what would happen. Okay, he calls me, we talk on the phone. Hey, I just wanted to let you know, I've been hearing about some of the things you've been sharing from your brother, and I just want to tell you, I'm sorry. Like, I know I could have been a better dad to you. I know I physically touched you in ways that was inappropriate and hurt you physically. I know I said things to you that hurt you emotionally and that impacted you. And I'm just so sorry that all of that happened. I was dealing with some of my own anger issues from my childhood, and I should have never projected that onto you. I'm really happy and proud of you, of how you've turned out in your life. And I just wanted you to know that I realize I messed up and I am so sorry. And I wish there's some way I could go back and change the way things were, but because I can't, I'm just here today to tell you I love you and I'm really happy to see you turned into an outstanding man. Do you know if I heard all those words in that order, I would probably bust out crying. But the sad reality is I will never hear those words because he doesn't own up to what happened. And you have to be okay with that. You're not going to always get closure. I know many of people that when they don't get closure, it breaks them for the rest of their lives. Now, I refuse. I already let him take away most of my life. Like, think about it. From the age of 14 until 17 and a half was when all this happened. Then it took me 15 years to kind of come to terms with, oh my God, I was just so angry. I was so upset. I ate my feelings. I ate so much crappy garbage in my late teens and 20s. And it took to the age of 32 before I finally started going, well, wait a minute. I got to stop this or I'm going to destroy myself. My brother Kevin did destroy himself. He died at 41. He was also abused at the hands of this man. And so I think I was headed in the same direction had I not changed my diet. Then as I changed my diet and I lost some weight and got healthier, started finding purpose in my life for the first time, all of those negative things he said about me, it was hard not to believe them. Because for the longest time, you're not going to amount to anything. You're worthless. There's no reason for you to be breathing. He said the ugliest things to me, you guys. And those things reverberate in your head. And for 15 years after I left the house, I was looking over my shoulder thinking he was coming to kill me. Now that's a scary, scary thought. That was 32 when I started kind of coming-ish to terms with things. And now I'm 48 years old, over 15 years later than that, before I'm finally coming to this realization of, okay, all of that happened. How does he feel about it? Oh, okay, he's denying it, acting like it didn't happen. Okay, I have to act accordingly. I think cutting off ties with him is the right thing to do. And that's unfortunate because I really do feel like in his heart, he thinks he's a good man. In his heart, he thinks he did the right thing. He's in denial about the things he did do. And that's hard when you're the victim of someone who traumatized you, when you hear them denying it. And I know I'm not alone. There's a lot of people that have gone through far worse trauma than I did, and especially girls that have sexual abuse. Oh my gosh, like that would devastate me. I don't know how you overcome that or how you forgive or move on from someone who would do something so violating. And yet it happens all the time, and yet we're right there. A lot of people are right there. So moving on is being at peace with what you decide to do. And I think I've come to the conclusion that he lost the opportunity when he neglected contrition. All he would have to do right now is be contrite and ask for forgiveness and admit what he did and say that it was wrong. If he did all that, I probably would forgive him. I probably would welcome him back into my life. Guys, the kind of conversations I'm having with my mom right now, deep, like really deep, really real. Like I've never talked this openly to my mom before. And my relationship with her is so incredible right now. And she noted it today. Oh my gosh, I feel like I've got a new version of my son. And of course, part of that is I am a new version of myself because of the sabbatical I went on, and she knows the journey of that as well. And I would crave that from my dad, but I know I won't get any more than surface answers. Literally, his first thought when he talks to me is, well, let me see who died the last time we talked. I'm like, I don't care who died the last time we talked. How about we talk about real life stuff, like you and I stuff and what's going on in your life, and how about giving a crap what's going on in my life? It's crazy, guys, but it's also one of those realities of life. And if you don't come to the realization that you have to kind of come to terms with not having that closure when you desperately want it, it will eat away at you. And I refuse. Like I gave up so much of my life grieving over this man that didn't care about me. And I refuse to do it any longer. Not going to get the closure I want. And I'm okay with that because at this point, I have made something of myself. I am a man who has turned into something far better than he ever imagined I would be. And I'm going to move on with my life. And I'm going to make even more something of myself. And I was talking on the podcast earlier. I had Karen Martell, a really good friend of mine. We had a great kind of jibber-jabber conversation, and we were talking about how the events of your past do shape you. And I was talking very intimately with her about how I'm really glad I went through that, because the version of who I am now is a direct result of all that happened to me before. And it was almost like my whole life has been a reflection of proving him wrong. And it probably has been. How would my life have been different if I had two loving parents that were there together with me and supported me and gave me all the everything? I don't know. I do know I would be far different than I am today. Different in a better way, I don't know. Different in a a whole nother direction, probably. But that's where we are. And that's where you have to come to terms with in moving on when you don't get that closure. All right, I want to see what you guys have to say. We're going to go to Instagram Live first. Again, there's my cat Peaches. Hello, Peaches. You want to say hi to the peoples? Here. Whee! There's Peaches. All right. She's like, you brought me down from my perch just to kiss on me? Yes, I did. We're going to go to Instagram Live first. We'll go over to Facebook here in a minute. A reminder, Living La Vida Low Carb Facebook page. I can't see your comments, but please leave your comments. I'll be happy to look at those when we're done. All right, you guys, welcome in, welcome in. Thanks for being here for another episode of Jimmy Rants. Marie wants to know, how are you feeling? Yeah, I shared at the very beginning exactly how I'm feeling much better than I did. Thank you for asking. JimmyRants.com is the website. Beth wants to know if I'm getting tested for COVID-19. I don't think I need to. So for now, no. Kat says, looking good. Hope you feel like normal again. I do. I hope on camera I look pretty good. Well, as good as this is going to look. So Cariana, the best kind of quarantine buddy is a cat. Glad you're feeling better. Thank you. Yeah, she makes my eyes and my nose and my ears itch when I pick her up. So if I start doing this number, you know why. So, Kat says denial, still in denial. Yes, that's the saddest part, Kat. Literally, if he would just acknowledge, I feel bad that I did those things to you. But for him to tell my mom all he did was spank me and maybe yell at me a little bit, that is major denial. So yeah, that hurt when I heard that. And it's hard when you hear those kind of things. Ketoholic, move on, cut him out of your life. It's going to hurt you more. Exactly. Like, I have learned that you can't hold on to hope for somebody to be something that they're never going to be. You can't. And especially when it's family, it's so hard because you have this high expectation level that, okay, they're going to do the right thing because they care about you. And the fact that he denies he did any of this means he has no care for me at all. And that's hard to say about someone that's your blood relative. Like, he's the guy that was involved in making me with my mom. But I know plenty of people that they have one parent or another or both parents that don't give a crap about them. So I am not unique in this. I am just the next in line to have to deal with it. Kawi Zhang says, forgive him. Don't let it bother you. Release yourself from that. Well, I don't know about forgiving him. I mean, this is the hard thing. I have such empathy for him because I now know in hindsight, because I've learned about his childhood, that he was majorly abused physically and emotionally by his dad. So I have empathy for that. What I want to know is, okay, you had that happen to you and then you did it to me. Is there no sense of responsibility that you did all those things to me? So I have moved beyond the quote, letting it bother me stage. And I've moved on to, I would rather not have him in my life stage because I feel like that's what's best for me. Ketoholic, cut it off like you survived a bad dream. Yeah, it was a very bad dream. And keep in mind, it was 3.5 years of my life that has impacted me for decades. And I've come to terms with a lot of these things, you guys. You have to. You have to, or you will worry yourself literally to death. Beth says, how do you move on from his denial? Even so, taking it personally won't benefit you. He's denying it for his reasons, probably shame. Either way, it's not you. You know that. Exactly. Thank you, Beth. It is his reasons. And he is probably ashamed of what he did. I mean, to deny it at this point, like, what's the point? He's going to be gone in 10 years. Within the next 10 years, he won't be with us anymore. So what good does it do to hold it in until your grave? Like, I don't get that. Superficial conversations are the worst. See, that's the thing. You know me well enough. I don't do superficial. Like, if you're a friend of mine, and then several friends of mine follow me on Instagram, when I talk to you on the phone, we go deep. Like, that's literally my MO, because I think that's how you really get to know someone and how you connect with someone. And especially when it's a family member or a really great friend, if you're not super honest with each other on both ends and really kind of letting it all hang out, so to speak, without any implications of whatever you have to say, you're not really going very deep with people. You're not going to really grow. And I have grown so much, again, with my mom and the deep conversations. Like, we weren't even planning on having a deep conversation. She just wanted me to know about what my dad had said to her when she called, or when he called her. And then it turned into an hour-long conversation where we went very deep. You're so strong for sharing this. Thank you. I'm trying to be very open about the realness of the situation of having childhood trauma. And denial doesn't change that it happened. And I refuse for him to continue abusing me by refusing to address it today, which is what he's doing, by the way. When he refuses to acknowledge what happened, he's continuing the abuse now. And I refuse to let him touch me ever again. Debbie says, forgive him, not for him, but for you. It doesn't mean you ever have to speak to him again. You know the truth. Sometimes you never get an answer. Well, that's the truth, Debbie, which is why I do have great empathy for him. I do, for the reasons of now knowing why he abused me, I do forgive him for that. I just do wish, and this is what we're talking about in this Jimmy Rants, that he could give me that closure by saying and admitting that he did things that were wrong. And so since I'm not going to get those things, I do forgive him. I have a peace in my heart about cutting off ties with him and moving on with my life, because I have too much life left to live to get bogged down by someone who berated me so much when I was a kid. Eels said, it's okay to take care of you now. Cut him out completely. The acceptance that we seek is not going to come from people like that. Hold on to your mom now. I cherish my mom. My mom is literally a godsend to me right now, because I've got a lot of things going on in my life, not just this COVID-19 thing, not just the childhood trauma, some other relationship types of issues. And it would be very easy to fall down into a deep pit of despair. And talking to my mom, I've got 2 or 3 friends that I can go really deep with in conversations, and now I've got my mom. And I'll be relying a lot on all of those relationships. Beth says, all of this resonates with me. My relationship with my parents is way better, but hearing them is instructional for me. I call them out, and then we go deep as they're willing. That's awesome. Caleb says, I find the best way to deal with it is to write them a letter and get it all out. It truly gave me a peace of mind, because we can't change them and we can only change ourselves. God bless you. Thank you for that. Caleb's Grammy. I did write my dad a letter many years ago. This was really interesting, this story here. When I first started blogging, I put out a blog post kind of starting to talk about my dad and what he did. And so I put in the title, the impact that my big bad dad had. I was trying to be cute with the words. And I remember when I posted that, and I put it out there. It was out there for a little while, and then suddenly I call home to talk to Dad, and I get my stepmother on the line, and she starts reading me the riot act. What do you mean you're a big bad dad? He blah blah blah. You need to da da da. You don't need to talk about that blah 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 blah. And I said, did you read the article? Oh no, big bad dad. You shouldn't have said that. I said, read the friggin' article. And they don't have access to the internet. So I printed it out and I mailed them a copy of that blog post. And in it, I included a letter that said, I really regret the things that happened. And I feel like that I need to talk about this because it did have such a profound impact on my life. And I never heard anything from it. And so next time I see them, act like nothing happened. This is the problem. A lot of families, they sweep this under the rug because they think if they don't talk about it, it goes away. It doesn't go away. It gets bigger, so much bigger when you refuse to address it, which is why addressing it is the right thing to do, which is why Jimmy Moore is bringing this to the forefront, because I want people to start addressing this. It's ugly sometimes. You got nasty kind of feelings sometimes, but it's real. And it's what happens. My friend eats to gain weight to not make men see her like if she has camouflaged herself because she's been abused. I have heard that a lot, Ketoholic, where women who have had abuse do that because they don't want to look appealing because it's going to trigger them, especially sexual trauma. It's bad. Ilza says, you're helping so many people, Jimmy. You are a shining star. Thank you for that. I'm trying to be. Like, I know this is a heavy topic to talk about because it conjures up so many feelings inside of people. But I feel like this is my heart right now. This is what I think people need to hear. And quite frankly, the reaction that I've gotten to childhood trauma and talking about it has confirmed in my mind that it was the right thing to do. So thank you for that. Healing Scenery, thank you for sharing, Jimmy. I've had horrible trauma in my childhood as well. A lot of people have, and I think it's the great unspoken in the health community. And of course, when we talk about health, we always think about physical health, and physical health is impacted very profoundly by childhood trauma. But we forget part of health is mental health. How many people grow into adults and have bouts of anger and have where they refuse to give themselves sexually, physically to other people because of their sexual trauma they had when they were kids? How many people are affected years after their trauma? And let's keep in mind, childhood trauma is not what's happening in the midst of when you're having the event happen. The trauma happens in the years, if not decades, that follow. Like, I think about my dad. He's 71 now. And that happened to him when he was a kid, all the way until he got out of the house at 17. He was traumatized greatly. And look at it all these years later, half a century later, still dealing with the ramifications of his trauma because he's never came to full terms with it. It's sad. Some men think that it's okay to beat men and not a woman, as if that's okay. Well, yeah. And vice versa. Don't try to rationalize it. You will not make sense out of it. Exactly. The keto artist, I forgave my abuser for myself, but I have no intention of ever allowing him back in my life, no matter how often he tries. And that's the thing. You set up these new boundaries. So with my dad, when he called me a week and a half ago, hey, dude, he would always kind of like, he was a charmer. It's like he's very good on the outside at making people like him. And this is usually pretty common of people that are abusers. they're very good at being deceptive and making everybody around them think they're normal. And meanwhile, they're abusing someone in their life and behind closed doors, and then nobody ever sees it. And then they see the real happy version of the abuser. Then they look at the victim, oh my God, what's wrong with them? Not realizing there's a lot wrong. Like, I was screaming for help from 14 to 17. I was begging anybody, get me out of this situation. And nobody would help. Nobody helped. Even people close to me knew what was going on. Can't do anything for you. I just had to put up with it. So that was when he had the power. Well, I have the power now. And I have the power to slam that door shut and never open it again. They can't admit their abuse even if they know they were wrong. And that's disgusting to me. It's disgusting that you can't even, all these years later, at least admit what you did. Even for his own sake, you know it has to be eating away at my dad, what he did to me. Maybe not. Maybe he is in such denial that he doesn't even have any guilt or shame about it. Which again is not my problem, that's on him. He's not evolved enough. So many are not. Sadly, you're a lot more evolved than he is, has healing scenery. Well, probably. And I have definitely made something of myself. And I have definitely perspective now because of being able to kind of see things through a different lens. Hopefully he has been remorseful with his maker. I don't know, Beth, to be honest. My mom is my mom and dad. I got 0 from my dad. She's my everything. And that's great, Ketoholic. And I'm seeing my own mom as the same. I was telling her earlier, I never had a father figure. I never had a male role model. And everything I know about being a man, I learned from my mom. About how she taught me about how you treat a girl. So that's where I'm at. Brittany says, acceptance, accept your story. It happened even when others deny it. Accept your story, know your truth, and rise above it. Girl, you know me well enough. That's literally my theme song right now. So, but thank you. I love your perspective as always. And Brittany is a really good friend of mine. You guys go follow realfood.reallife on Instagram. Beth says, of course, it's eating him. It's been a few weeks since a trauma topic, and he just called your mom, who he hasn't spoken to in 12 years. It's eating away at him. You're right, Beth. And that's not mine to own. If he's feeling guilty, that should tell you something, that he would get to the point that he felt like he'd have to call my mom, who he has no love lost for. My theory is he beat me and not my younger brother, who had another mother, because he was mad at my mom. And so I was the closest thing to my mom. And plus I looked a lot like my mom when I was a kid. So it was very easy for him to just beat the crap out of me as a proxy for my mom. I told my mom that. She started crying. I said, no. I'm not telling you that to make you upset. I'm just telling you it definitely makes sense if that's what he did. All right, let me come over to Facebook. Welcome in, you guys. Thank you for being here today on Jimmy Rants. Let's see here. Glad to hear you're doing better. Thank you, Luann. Hey, Amy. Good afternoon. Hope you're feeling better. Thank you, Louise. I do feel a lot better. Thank you for that. In my opinion, check out the science on ACT therapy and get Dr. S. Hayes on your podcast or see his videos. You're awesome. Contact me on Facebook if you need to. Thank you, Marcus. I'm interviewing a lot of people on the Living La Vida Low Carb show. I had a whole bunch of those childhood trauma interviews in the can ready to go, and then all the COVID-19 stuff came out, so we kind of adjusted the schedule a little bit. But I'm trying to find more experts, so thank you. If you want to go ahead and drop me a DM on that, I would love to reach out to Dr. Hayes to have him on the show. You're overcoming this is heroic. Thank you, Marcus. I'm trying my best to give people perspective here. because people sometimes get paralyzed by the events that happened in their life. Whether it's some traumatic event that happened or some childhood trauma or whatever it is, we all go through some things, and so you're not always going to get the closure that you want. So coming to terms with that definitely helps you. Janet says, glad you're doing well. Thank you. I am doing very well. If you missed the beginning, I was sick the last few days, feeling suddenly tired and fatigued. But today I'm doing a whole lot better. So thank you guys for all your love and support. All right. So the bottom line today, and thank you for letting me kind of go a little bit deep today with this topic. I know when I brought up childhood trauma, it's kind of a mixed bag. A lot of you guys, say, oh, thank you for sharing so openly. And then you got other people going, I don't want him to talk about this because I don't want to address it. So I hope at least this puts it on your radar screen of a real world example of someone you know and love. I think you guys love me. You do watch me here on Jimmy Rants. So that this is normal, guys. Like, we're all going through our own version of this story that I've shared. I've just told you my story, but we all have our own story. You know the things that you've been through in your life, and you know whether you've actually dealt with them properly or not. And if you haven't, and what I talk about gets it on your radar screen to start talking about it or thinking about it or trying to deal with it and how you come to terms with moving on when you don't get that closure you're looking for, then I feel like I've done my job. So thank you for letting me share so openly, so honestly. I know this ruffles feathers because people are like, well, you can't talk about stuff like that. It's too taboo. You're going to hurt people's feelings. You know what? I'm over it. I think what's hurt is all the people that hold on to this stuff and they develop autoimmune disease. They hold on to this stuff and they eat their feelings till they weigh 400 or 500 pounds. They hold on to this stuff and they just get worse in their life. And if I can save some people from that, then I feel like I've done my job. That's it for this episode of Jimmy Rants. JimmyRants.com is the website. As always, go follow me over on Instagram Live, or Instagram, and then we go live. I'm at Living Low Carb Man, LIVINLOWCARBMAN. Once you're there, follow us. We usually do the show at 11 a.m. Eastern Time, Monday through Friday, and then 2 p.m. Eastern Time on the weekend, Saturday and Sunday. And then sometimes I do 5 o'clock ones. Because I did not do an 11 a.m. one today, and I was feeling really good here today, I thought I would come on at 5 p.m. today. So thank you for letting me come here. Kat says, when they hurt you, hurt your feelings, they didn't care. Yeah, that's true. That's very true. If you missed any of the past episodes, go to jimmyrants.com. We have all of them listed there. Also, we put them up on YouTube. So type in a keyword, Jimmy Rants, on YouTube. You will find the show. We also, on Tuesdays, on the Living La Vida Low Carb show, we've been airing a lot of the replay of these episodes. We kind of lately have been doing a lot of the COVID-19 ones and how you deal with that. Coming up on Tuesday, I did several lately on the dietary guidelines and things that have changed about it for the 2020 guidelines. So we're going to air that on Tuesday. So go listen on Tuesdays on the Living La Vida Low Carb show. That's LLVLC.com. All right, guys. Thanks for being here on this episode of Jimmy Rants. We'll be back again real soon. We'll see you then. And that's